everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining us. We're just, it's 12:01. I guess we can just go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's Naturally Bay Area Quick Bites event. I'm so excited to get started with our amazing panelists today. And first, just want to say a quick thank you to the Naturally Bay Area sponsors. We would not be here without all of you. So thank you so much for your support. And I also want to mention the new Naturally Bay Area Discovery Box program. It's a really exciting offering that Naturally Bay Area is about to launch that will allow selected brands to get their products in front of VIPs, just like the buyers that we're going to be hearing from today, as well as investors and influencers. So really encourage everyone here today to take a look at the Discovery Box program and consider applying. Maybe we can just put a link to that in the chat. But without further ado, we can get started. I'm Jen Berliner. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm a Naturally Bay Area board member, as well as the general manager of Moonshot, Climate Friendly Snacks. And I'm really excited to be here with this amazing group of panelists. And I will let each of you take a couple minutes to introduce yourselves. I think we're just gonna start in alphabetical order. So Miriam, welcome, and would love to have you kick things off.
Oh, thanks, Jen. So my name is Miriam Welch. I'm the dairy category ASM at Safeway for Northern California. I started many years ago in this industry, bagging groceries after school at Lucky Stores. If any of you remember the Lucky Stores, not the Lucky Stores that are in the Bay Area today, but the predecessor. I went through the stores, and I've been a buyer, category manager for over 25 years. The last 15 years, I was actually in SoCal, where I eventually oversaw the entire grocery frozen dairy department for Albertsons, Vaughn's, Pavilions. But I had the opportunity to come back home to Norcal recently, so I'm in the process of moving. And so now I'm overseeing dairy for 289 Safeway, Andronico's, Fresno, Vaughn's, and Pack and Save stores in Northern California, Nevada, and Hawaii. I went to San Francisco State and UC Berkeley, and also I was really lucky to attend the WFC executive program at USC. We have a great partnership in our industry with USC through the Western Association of Food Chains. Highly recommend it. Both the executive program and the other programs. If anybody wants more information, I'll do a plug for the WFC programs. Just send me information, I'll get you connected. It's a great way to learn about our industry. So that's me.
Amazing, thank you. Patrick?
Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Wyman, and I'm the local forager for Whole Foods Market, where I'm in my 19th year, and I've been in natural foods my whole adult life, a couple of smaller chains before Whole Foods Market. And you might wonder, what the heck's a local forager? So as the name sort of implies, my job is to go out into our local food shed virtually in the last year and now physically again to look for amazing new smaller local brands. And there is at least one of me in each of our 11 regions, and many regions have a full team. So I work with our smaller local suppliers, helping them figure out how to do business with Whole Foods Market. And once you're doing business, how to grow with us. And that can be growing within a couple more stores in a region, or it could be growing to a few more regions, or it could be across the whole company. But definitely, it's also code for eating a lot of good food. So I like that part. Pleasure to be here.
That's what it's all about. Sarah?
Hello, I'm Sarah Gordon. I'm one of the regional grocery buyers for Whole Foods Market, Northern California region. I oversee most of the dry grocery center store, part of the store. And I work closely with Patrick with launching new local brands and discovering new local brands. I've been with Whole Foods since about 2015. I started first in this same role, supporting the whole body department. And then a few years later, transitioned over to grocery. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here and answer questions and looking forward to our discussion.
Great, thank you. And Thuy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Thuy Nguyen. I'm one of the category managers at Good Eggs, and I handle a lot of categories: bakery, prepared foods, drinks, confections, fruits and nuts, dried fruits and nuts, and most recently vitamins and supplements, which we launched at, near the end of last year. I've been at Good Eggs for about 3.5 years, and it's been amazing. Prior to Good Eggs, my life is just food, so I've only worked in food companies because that's my passion. I think about it all the time when I'm not like eating, baking, cooking, whatever. So prior to Good Eggs, I was at Belcampo, which is an organic meat company doing like retail sales and value-added product development. I've also worked on a farm. I worked for a very, very tiny version of Good Eggs where I would drive a 10 by 10 foot box truck to the ferry building on Saturdays, pick up groceries from farmers, and then truck it back to our warehouse and pack it in like these cute little red baskets. So that was a very, very fun experience and my first introduction into like the Bay Area food scene. Prior to that, I've managed farmers markets at green markets in New York with a nonprofit bakery called Hot Bread Kitchen. Yeah, so I think my whole trajectory has been working with food companies that are very excited, have a very strong mission, and are just dedicated to bringing good food out into the world. And with Good Eggs, it's great because I get to help small food companies bring their products into the world too. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you all. Excited for this great range of perspectives. So with that, I think we can dive in, and just so everyone watching knows, we have a few questions that we're going to go ahead and ask the panelists now, and then we're going to have time at the end for Q&A. So you can use the specific Q&A function in Zoom to drop your questions in there, and we'll get through as many as we can. But to kick things off, I'd love to just start by talking about what trends or categories that each of you is most interested in as you're reviewing product these days. So Thuy, do you want to start?
Yeah, I could talk about trends all day. It's my favorite topic. So many things coming out of 2020, but I think like the thing that I'm most excited about is back in 2019, 2020, I saw a lot of these emerging BIPOC owned brands that were kind of like shirking traditional retail shelves and just going direct to consumer. And they had great stories, great content, like great loyal following. And I think like they've conquered their D2C channel and now they're looking to get into retail grocery. So I'm excited to look at those products when I'm reviewing. It's funny, I think like before the story I used to hear was, I found this ingredient and when I was traveling and I brought it back here and I want to share it with the world. But now the story I'm hearing is actually, no, I grew up with these flavors. I grew up with these flavors. I don't see myself represented on these shelves. So I'm just going to create a brand, create a product and bring it directly to the consumer without waiting for people to find my ingredients trendy. So I'm super excited about that. And like we work with brands like Sanzo and Diaspora, and I'm so excited to see what else is going to come out.
I'd tack something on. I think one of the upsides of the pandemic was people started cooking again or reinvesting in culinary exploration. And time will tell how. I imagine there will be a shift back to convenience to some extent. Hopefully lunch will become a thing again. But I think that culinary exploration will continue, and it definitely helps. It helps on a lot of levels. So I think there's excitement around new cuisine in a way there wasn't before. And that's exciting for retailers in particular, because we can have interesting new things out there.
Yeah. So this is Miriam, and I'll actually tack on to what Patrick said. We have seen a huge explosion. I mean, I have more conventional customers. I mean, I carry the whole range of customers at Safeway, but in cooking, like our Asian and Hispanic sections, which is mostly ingredient like coconut milk and chopped chilies, are just on fire as people are cooking. But we're also seeing a lot of times when you have new items, it's you introduce new items to existing users, and now it's almost like you have old items that are getting new users. So it's rather than new items to old users, because when the pandemic hit and we had the huge surge and people bought anything, I think a lot of people bought stuff they weren't used to, and then they really found out, hey, I like this $9 loaf of brioche, and so there's a lot of categories when we talk about categories where it says, oh, the household penetration is like 30%, which means 30% of households bought it at least once in the last year. And I think the household penetration, this was a time household penetration in a lot of categories went up because the average customer bought more items in more categories. I think they're going to stick with it. So how do you take maybe existing items and introduce and keep the new customers? Because I've always, like, there's old school items that have been around forever, and now the new generation is rediscovering it on their own because of pandemic. And then just a clean twist on basics is what I'm seeing, and comfort food, but different, a modern twist on that. That's some of the trends I'm seeing, but it's definitely existing items to new users is a big trend, and cooking, as Patrick said.
Yeah, to chime in on that too, I'd say that I think we all saw a huge increase in cooking and baking starting with last year. To some extent, I think it's leveled off a little bit. We still see a lot of folks looking for products to support all the cooking they're doing at home and all the baking that they're doing, but we're seeing a little bit of maybe traces of some cooking or baking fatigue. And so I think products that also add some convenience to that, whether it's larger pack sizes or baking mixes or baking kits, I think can support maybe some of the fatigue that people are feeling as we go into this second year of the new normal.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we can all probably relate to cooking fatigue a little bit. But I think all of those are so interesting, from more diverse products and founders like bringing their experience and their food to the mainstream is great. Miriam, super interesting what you were saying about staples, older products finding new life and new users. And then, yeah, Sarah, completely makes sense that people might be kind of trying to recalibrate. You know, we were like on the go all the time before, then we went nowhere, and now it's like, what products do we need for this new world that we're tiptoeing into? So I think that was really, really great. Next, I'd love to get kind of into the meat and talk about what, if anything, is different about your category reviews this year versus years prior. I mean, obviously last year was kind of its own beast, but what criteria are you leaning into, or what are things that maybe weren't as much of a focus in 2019 and before that, that you are thinking about now? And maybe we can start with Sarah.
Sure, yeah. I'd say on the one hand, we're seeing certain trends just continue to grow. So trends that maybe were emerging a few years ago are now like a very big focus for customers from what we can see. So trends like plant-based, sugar-free, especially in like the beverage category. Interestingly, also like full fat products within the dairy category continue to trend. So some of those trends that maybe were a little bit early on in the trajectory as of a few years ago are now just really ramping up. And so those continue to be a focus for us, but also like are more of a priority now than before. But also, kind of similar to what I was mentioning before, ever since this past year, I think something that we're looking at this and last year versus years before are products that can support sort of the new lifestyle that we're in now. So we see customers gravitating more towards multi-packs. So like a few years ago where things like single bar nutrition bars were doing really, really well, we're sort of seeing a little bit of like diversion from that into more like larger pack size items and less specifically like on the go type products. So I think that's something that we're looking at. Also multi-serves, or so just like a larger version of the packaging that maybe people were buying before falls within that same vein. And all of this kind of just ties into folks still making fewer shopping trips than they were before, although it'll be interesting to see how that changes. We're just not really sure. So we'll be keeping an eye on things as the situation progresses, but those are some of the like key focuses that we have this year versus some of the years prior.
I can chime in too. That was great, Sarah. For me, last year, at the end of last year, we were focusing on vitamins and supplements, and I think that we're going to continue to do that in 2021. And I think there's more of a focus on like how else can you make your food functional. So adaptogens, like L-theanine, putting all those things into drinks is going to be what I'm focusing on, because I feel like with the pandemic, everyone was experiencing brain fog or just being tired and unfocused. And I think people are looking for more products to kind of make them more functional or more focused. Also, what's different for us is in 2020, in like summer 2020, we launched this new open submission period that was kind of in response to like the social justice movements, Black Lives Matter, that happened during the summer. And I think we, like as a category manager, I'm always thinking about that. Like I'm thinking about diversifying our products, our producers, but to have it in writing was, I think the 2020 really solidified that we need to be more intentional about that. So our open submission period happens four times a year, and it's it's open for underrepresented groups to submit their products that are outside of like traditional category review. So say they're ready to submit in March, but we're not reviewing like functional beverages until December. Like they have the opportunity to submit to us. Yeah, that's what we're doing differently this year.
Okay, that's great, Thuy. And this is Miriam again. And so I'm from the more conventional chain, and this is probably not as exciting, but for me, what's really changed on reviews is supply chain. On March 13th, when the surge exploded and our stores just got emptied, supply chain, we became not only a full-time buyer, but full-time supply chain managers. And it's supply chain and being able to keep us in stock is it's always a priority, but now it's the top of every conversation. And especially if you're a newer or emerging brand that uses a co-packer. I know all last year, many of the major CPG companies went around the company buying up co-packing time because they did not have enough time or line time or production capacity. So I know a lot of the co-packing space got eaten up by the General Mills and the Kellogg's, et cetera, of the world. And so as part of every review, I mean, it could be the best product in the world, but if I can't get it to sell and have it be consistent, I just can't don't want to disappoint my customers. So supply chain and being in stock and having it holding power. So a real big focus on variety versus duplication, and is what's the best way to keep in stock all the time for our stores is highest priority I've ever seen. So supply chain's a big deal in reviews, at least for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Patrick, anything you want to hop in on?
Yeah, just that we've seen some value in duplicative sources and items. And does that keep going? I mean, I think we're of the mind that we need to hedge our bets a bit. So where we might be okay with 3 black beans, when we looked at a empty shelf for a bit, we might want a 4th. And so there's a lot of guesswork. There's filling in the blanks in terms of sales history for periods where we're out of stock. There is tempering these sales that will not repeat where people filled their entire garage with toilet paper. So there's a lot to this review period of like making sense of the numbers and then being smart about the future, and that the potential is to have more. So I think we saw the value of not having our eggs in one basket for sure.
I definitely want to chime in on that because that was totally true for Good Eggs too. As like a curated marketplace, like we kind of only have like one type of something. So that was what we kind of went through in 2020, like making sure we have supply chain resilience, making sure we have a little bit of repetition on our shelves. So I think, yeah, focusing that in 2020 is also key.
Supply chain. We are starting to get some questions in the Q&A, including brands pointing out that foot traffic is starting to increase in stores. So I'd love to talk about promotional and marketing support. So what are each of you looking for from brands? And many of us work for, newer, smaller brands with limited resources. So how should we think about prioritizing when we're submitting to you all for reviews? Is it really about promos? Like, are demos coming back on the table? What are you all looking for brands to support with?
Oh, so this is Miriam. I'll start off. So first about demos, we don't have an ETA for demos yet because even when California reopens up, we don't know when the mask policy will. We're being very conservative just because we're the forefront of when this happened and how it impacted our people. So we haven't, at least for us and other retailers, have like a digital program. Like for us, it's Just For You, where you could do targeted marketing for, you say, anybody who buys yogurt, I'm going to give them a cents off or free product through the digital demo for our Just For You customers. So that's one way you can do a demo, since we're not feeding people at the stores right now. But the number one thing as a brand for promotions is like, know your retailers. We're not all the same. We all promote differently. And what's the strategy for each? Do they do month-long promotions? Do they do a hot weekly ad? What do they expect for, emerging brands? And a lot of times if you work with someone who's dealt with each of the retailers, they can give you guidance on, hey, what does Safeway like? What does Lucky like? What does Whole Foods like? As a conventional store, I would look for every brand to have at least a solid promotional plan, even the smaller brands, at least one reduced price for 10% or more, at least 2 weeks a quarter. I mean, just to change tags. Tags drive a lot of business in our stores. Seeing the club prices in our store, and that gets customers to the shelf. And fresh tags, they fall off. So doing promotions gets fresh tags in the stores. And then just personally, like a lot of the big suppliers like UNFI or KeHE, they have a book where everybody, you go in the KeHE book deal. I would prefer to do a plan outside the books because otherwise everybody in the books at the same time. I'd rather do a plan locally versus going through, hopefully I don't know if there's distributors on here, but a distributor book deal. That's just my preference. It's just more flexibility for promotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I was a bet man, I'd say demos are going to come back sometime in this calendar year, but it is not visible. And similarly, we are conservative on that front. So we will probably be the last retailer. Maybe we'll be neck and neck with Safeway. But
yeah.
There are parts of the country for Whole Foods Market where they are doing package sample demos. They've done some informational, just telling people about the product. But as parts of the country reduce tiers and whatnot, I imagine that's coming back. And then it's always the question of, you know, everyone has limited spend. Is this a product and category that benefits more from somebody tasting it than from a promotional frequency? I think obviously both work quite well, but some categories just really respond to a customer being able to try it. And so is there another way to accomplish that, like Miriam was saying? And then as foot traffic is beginning to come back, are there ways to drive traffic into our stores? And that can be not expensive. That can be your social channels. And we always look to partner with folks to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I was also going to chime in that some other things that we've seen be successful in place of demos, given the status of that and the changing situation with demos, is I think coupons, whether it's like a coupon that's placed on the product before it ships to us so that a customer can redeem that at point of sale, or coupons that customers might get through some other channel. That's just another avenue that can be used to help drive some attention and awareness towards the product. Yeah, like Patrick said, I think what we might have seen through this past year, at least while foot traffic was a little bit lower, is social media was a big push for some suppliers to get the word out about their products. That seemed to resonate well for the folks that tried it out.
For Good Eggs, we don't really do scheduled sales and promotions at the moment. So if a brand can come to the table with an EDLP, that is preferable to us. I know that's harder for smaller brands. So with smaller brands, I think we love a brand that's flexible and that can kind of be creative about the ways that they could promote. So whether it's creating content for us that we repost on our social, or working with us to develop a recipe that we can share via like a blog post or Instagram or something, like we value like partnerships that can be a little bit more nimble. But we are working on scheduled sales and promotions to come later this year. We don't have sales very often, but when we do, they drive a lot of trial. We also like have merchandising stories on our website, and that's where brands can be featured. So if they can come to the table with some kind of promotional support, then you know we can provide them with a feature in those stories, which drive a lot of a lot of sales.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like we're cautiously optimistic about demos, but that information-focused demos or full package demos are maybe an option in the meantime, or lots of good ideas around social media, digital or physical couponing. So I think lots of really great ideas for brands to kind of prioritize and based on what makes sense for their specific situation. Here's a good question from the chat. Scott is asking, how much weight do you give to local brands versus national brands in the review process? I mean, there may be some supply chain considerations with that based on what you all have mentioned before, but how does the kind of local tag fit in? And maybe Patrick, as our resident forager, we can start with you.
We give lots of weight to local, hence my name. So I would say it goes hand in hand with innovative products. So local, but the same as several other brands out there, isn't particularly helpful. It doesn't drive category sales and ultimately doesn't serve our customers. So we're looking for that combination of great item, innovative, unique in the category, And then we love that it's local. So we obviously feature products from around the world, and we love some of our amazing supplier partners from far afield, and we particularly love our local suppliers. So I think it's a balance there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll jump in. This is Miriam. I think it varies widely by category. I'm sure if you look like in our wine section, we're really big. I mean, we like local. I mean, we have local products in our Hawaii stores. We have local products that go to a couple stores, and then we have local products like Clover Dairy, which is huge in Northern California, and the majority of our stores. So there's some categories I don't think, like some categories like toilet paper, it doesn't matter if you're local, right? But other categories, it's more important. So I think it varies greatly. But I agree with Patrick that if it's just, hey, the only difference is that you're local and it's the same can of beans that everybody else. What's different about it? You know, you want to help support like the local businesses with employment and all that kind of stuff. But if it's just nothing different and the customer doesn't really see it as local, because the customer has to understand that it's local as well, not just. So it has to. It varies widely by brand and by category.
I can jump in as well. For me, with Good Eggs, like we built our bread and butter on local producers in the Bay Area, so that is definitely what I focus on. What my priorities are. Of course, like there are things that we do need to find nationally, like toilet paper, as you mentioned, Miriam. But if I feel like if we can get it locally, then we will. And like, for example, we're expanding down to LA later this year, and my focus is going to be finding those like local LA brands that will kind of bring customers to us, like brands that they can't find anywhere else. Yeah, that's what we look for.
So what I'm hearing is an opportunity for cutting edge locally sourced toilet paper company to hit the market and really position themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would add that differentiation is important, and it can come in a number of forms. I think social mission is huge. It is more difficult to communicate, certainly on package. So it requires a little more of a lift for your average consumer to get the story. But very important. But is there a differentiating factor that is discernible? I think that's what excites me and our customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And another question from Michelle. Do you think people will continue to focus on health and nutrition and immune boosting foods? And maybe Thuy, we could start with you, since I think you said you guys launched vitamins and supplements in the last year.
Yeah, I think people are going to continue to care about their health in 2021. And I think people want maybe different form factors. So I mentioned like more functional beverages, like ways you can like kill two birds, one stone, you know, drink a soda, but also get your probiotics in. I think that's, people are still looking for those things. I'm still looking for those things. I love functional beverages, so yes.
I would agree with Thuy, and for conventional, it's been this way for 10, 15 years. It's clean labels, so we want the cleanest labels possible. So it's not the functional foods thing, but it definitely clean labels is. We've seen a lot cleaned up, but I think there's still more to go. People want to understand what's on their label.
Any other thoughts on health and wellness?
I would just agree. I think it's going to continue to be a focus for customers for the foreseeable future. It's probably for folks that were already sort of health and wellness conscious, they're probably like feeling kicked into overdrive over this past year. And then folks probably found a newfound interest in that with everything going on. So I can't imagine that would go away anytime soon.
Yeah, I think the trend's left the station there for sure. I always am interested to see what like our Kansas City stores, what's the trend there. And you can see, I mean, the macro trend of natural organic is never going back. And
Absolutely.
and then it's, you know, how each sub trend, if you will, how much legs does it have? We saw that paleo and keto have had pretty good legs. And so I think there's just these sub trends that keep going and growing, and then they're not a trend, they're just a fact of life.
Yeah, and one follow-up question, which is maybe a bit specific, but I'm personally interested in the answer. What about a category like wellness shots, which I think was like doing very well before the pandemic? Is that, and we could expand it a little more broadly, but sort of those single serve on the go health and wellness and immunity type products, like how have those fared? Because on one hand, it's really spot on with the immunity focus, but it's also like a small single serve item that you would normally pick up at the register in store. Any thoughts on the wellness shot or kind of adjacent categories?
Yeah, I mean,
my company,
I guess I would
in produce.
go.
Oh no, I'm sorry. In my company, they're produce. So from what the produce people say, they're on fire, but I don't know what the produce guys mean by that. So
I think there's sort of a merging happening. So we've seen serving size in juice and functional beverage go down with sugar going down. So it's not that it's down to shot level, but it's kind of equidistant. So I think there's a broadening of functional beverage in general, which probably takes in super clear wellness shots. And I think we're seeing growth there. It's like some of the subcategories like kombucha have been flattening and declining, but that sales is leaking out to other portions of the functional beverage world. And I think I would put shots in with that.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting.
I agree with Patrick. I think that wellness shots are continuing to do well, but I feel like people are branching out. There's a lot of wellness shots out there. There's a lot. So I think like people are maybe looking for different form factors. Like I really feel like functional sodas are like expanding, or different functional fermented beverages beyond kombucha, like tepache, or like drinking vinegars that with carbonation. I think people are going that route.
Cool. Avery is asking, and I think we just touched on this for a second, of kind of the challenge of communicating social and environmental mission on pack and maybe on shelf more broadly. Well, the question just left the chat because so do you just have any examples of either specific brands, or if you don't want to play favorites, maybe tactics or ideas for communicating an environmental or social commitment on shelf?
I can chime in.
We're on the website for you.
On the website, it's easy. People can tell their story. They can send me what they want me to say, and we can put it on the page. You know, customers really read those bios, and they reached out to us if there's any like spelling errors or anything. So we know people are looking. There's eyeballs on that page. That's the greatest place to storytell for us. We also have like we can tell a story through social, through Instagram, through email. There's different ways for us to kind of talk beyond like the packaging. We recently did that with Renewable. Yes, I am playing favorites. I love them. And we were able to tell their story of like upcycled okara flour and like how they incorporate it into different products. So many ways to storytell with us.
And are those, since I know people will be thinking it, are those like organic opportunities with Good Eggs? Like how, if someone wanted to consider getting featured in something like that at Good Eggs, how might they do that?
It's pretty organic right now. We don't have like a set program. It's kind of like things that we're really excited about, and working with producers that are really excited and ready to create content for us as well. So it goes both ways.
Awesome. Amazing. Team Whole Foods or Miriam, any thoughts on this?
Well, we do have, if you're in industry, I think most of us, and I'm not sure about Whole Foods, but a lot of us use the tag supplier Vestcom. So I know for nutritional call outs like USDA organic or gluten-free, we have a program through Vestcom where a brand submits their items, we note the claims, and then it prints out on the tags. So when you see the organic tags at Safeway, I mean, it's not storytelling, but at least it calls out attributes on the tag. We do not have like social justice or we have environmental claims like no sulfates and stuff like that. But through the tag supplier, we've had other manufacturers work with Vestcom to get QR codes on our tags where customers could scan and get the story. We've done programs with Pinterest. Most customers spend a couple seconds at the shelf. So I know a lot of them go online to do research. We have done social media links with our programs with our vendors. It varies, but most customers, at least in our store, spend a couple sections on the shelf and shop out of habit. So, but at least the nutritional call outs can be on the tags.
Got it.
I think similar to Good Eggs, we have an organic process for highlighting suppliers digitally. Interestingly, we just highlighted Renewal Mill as well. We love them as well. And also we really encourage, brands are doing this already, but really to do that work on their social channels, and then it makes a great combination with the stories that we choose to elevate internally. But that's, you know, the reality is say less on shelf, make your packaging icon do the work for you, and then your true believers will go after that information and hopefully they'll tell a friend. I think that's the most helpful way to get that level of message out, because people have tried to overdo it and that just shoots you in the foot, because people's eyes can't take that in, and so they actually pass by your product.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a lot of bad packaging out there with too much stuff, as Patrick says. Sometimes people over convey, and simpler is better. And how does it look on the shelf? At least for us in conventional, how does it look on the shelf? Because it might look beautiful by itself, but then you put it in a set and it might just be terrible. So how does it look on a set besides on its own in a picture is really important. And it's more crucial than you would think. And as I say, a lot of ugly packaging. No offense for anybody.
Don't name names on that one.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'd like to end with the one question that's probably on everyone's minds. I know I've seen it in the Q&A a few times. What should brands know about reaching out to you? And specifically, what's the best way to do it? Do you use RangeMe? Do they need to work with a broker? Are you brave enough to give out your email? Do you want people sliding into your LinkedIn DMs? Like what's the best way to reach you, the best timing, and what information are you actually looking for? Patrick, you want to start?
I do. So this will be specific to Whole Foods Market. We have a website, supplier.wholefoodsmarket.com. I put it in the Q&A early on. And on that portal is some helpful information. One, our quality standards, which we have fairly unique quality standards in the marketplace. And our food safety toolkit, also fairly unique to us and super helpful, something we emphasize strongly. And then at the very bottom of the page, you can submit for interest. And it's a real simple form that gathers the basic information that we need from you. And based on where you say you produce your product, it will go to the buyers in that region. So it'll go to local forager and it'll go to the buying team in that region. So that's a great way to do it.
At Safeway, I would just reach out through email. I do follow. I know there was a question on do we go outside the review cycle. I do not go out the review cycle very much, but that doesn't, I could still tell you when to come back for a review. It just reviews, you know, it's one thing to look at the items, but then when you execute them, we have to try to balance out how much work we do in our stores, because they are disruptive to the stores. So we don't want to like blow up the whole store all at once. But it would be directly with me, and then I would give you further information.
Great. Yeah, and I think we're going to send out contact information in the follow-up email for everyone who's on today. So that will be coming.
I'll go real quick. For me, I don't use RangeMe. LinkedIn is probably not the best way to reach out to me. On goodeggs.com, if you go to the bottom of the page, there's a sell your goods form, and you can submit details about your products. But for me, I want people to come ready with like a detailed understanding of their own sourcing and like an understanding of what our standards are before they submit, because we do have really high standards, and it's, you know, I really want people to just know their supply chain before coming to us. Right now, our category review is kind of on pause as we're focused on LA expansion. So, but if you're an LA brand, reach out to me because I'm looking. But in 2022, like, we are gonna go full force with our calendar review again. So check back for updates with us.
Just to tack on to what Thuy said, yeah, come prepared, like with promotions, know who you're selling to and know how we merchandise stuff. For example, I just sent out something this morning on eggs because of the upcoming cage-free initiative. And if I have 20 items in my set, coming prepared and saying, oh, I have 50 items and I don't know anything about the California egg laws, it's you have to be prepared for the appointment and know what the buyer, you know, what the chain is, sets look like, and what it takes to succeed.
Yeah, definitely got to do your homework.
Yep.
I'd just add that's kind of the purpose of the local forager position across our company, is that you can come, we'll get you there. And when you do submit to category review, you need to have all those things going. But I can also, one of the purposes of my job is to help you understand how to get there and provide some resources.
Amazing. And I know we are over time. I think Naturally Bay Area posted in the chat that we have a LinkedIn post that was linked to, and if any questions, I know there were a lot we didn't get to in our limited time today, but feel free to go comment them on that post, and I think our amazing participants are going to be checking on that and can answer some more questions there. And Sarah, I'm super impressed you were able to multitask and answer things in the chat while we were talking too, so thank you. So huge thank you to Miriam, Patrick, Sarah, and Thuy. This was awesome. Definitely continue the conversation on LinkedIn. And then just 2 little plugs from Naturally Bay Area. One, there's an amazing networking event coming up on May 10th in partnership with Naturally Boulder that looks like it's going to be really great. There are some functional breakout rooms as well as opportunities to just kind of chat and meet folks. So you can register for that on the Naturally Bay Area site. And then again, check out the Naturally Bay Area Discovery Box program and consider applying. I think those links are going in the chat. So with that, I think we'll wrap things up and hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And thank you again to all of our panelists. This was super valuable.
Thank you
so much for having us. It was great.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Bye.